You're welcome. Let's start straight from Parliament, where the House is debating the Appointments Committee's report on the people that they vetted, talking about President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. If you recall, they have been appearing before the vetting committee. Now, there's a deadlock, though, on the Minister-designate for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Otiko Afisa-Jaba. Let's go live now and speak with our parliamentary correspondent, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. Hello, can you hear me, Joseph?
Gifty, good afternoon to you. I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic, and I see you. Now, tell us what the latest on this report. What is it about the deadlock on Afisa-Jaba?
Well, the report of the Appointments Committee covering 6 of the nominees came to the House this morning. The 6 include Dr. Anthony Akutu, Osei, who is the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, Otiko Afisa-Jaba, Dan Kwekubuche, John Peter Mewu, Ignatius Bafwewa, and Samuel Atachia. Now, the controversy is that at the level of the Appointments Committee, there is consensus that all the 5 others, apart from Otiko Afisa-Jaba, should be approved. So the minority is supporting the decision on her. But when it comes to Otiko Afisa-Jaba, the minority at the level of the Appointments Committee is insisting that she doesn't have the temperament to hold the position, and they have concerns about her not doing national service, and so she shouldn't take up a public office. Eventually, the issue had to come to the floor of the House for a general debate, and the decision was that the rest of the 5 were being approved by consensus, but when it comes to Otiko Afisa-Jaba, a decision had to be taken on her based on a voting system. Eventually, the majority leader requested that the voting should be moved from today because the day has run, and doing such a voting may take 2 to 3 hours to get done. And so they should move this until Tuesday when the House resumes, and that's when it's expected that a vote on whether to approve Otiko Afisa-Jaba or otherwise would come on. But in summary, the concern that the minority side are raising is that she, for example, called the President John Mahama evil in one of her campaign speeches, which they think is not something that someone who should take up a ministerial position should be doing. And they also are quoting some laws of the country to insist that when you've not done your national service, you shouldn't be given the opportunity to serve in public office. So those are the 2 main issues based on which the minority are seeking to block the nomination of Otiko Afisa-Jaba and her subsequent approval as Minister for Children, Gender and Social Protection. So we wait to see what will happen on Tuesday.
But whilst we wait to see what happens on Tuesday, tell us more about what happened in Parliament today. We understand that the minority, did not show a lot of signs of cooperation when it came to the issue of voting.
Yes, there was a long drag debate. At a point in time, even when you look at the members of the minority side in the House, a number of them walked away, and it was left with just the leadership of the minority side. So Haruna Idrisu, who is the minority leader, Muntaka Mubarak, who is the minority chief whip, and 6 or 7 other persons on the minority side. They were the ones who were left, but a lot of the majority members were around. The accusation was that the majority side, and specifically the majority leader, did not want the debate on the issue to go ahead because he felt his people or his side of the House did not actually have the numbers. Some members of Parliament are quoting portions of their standing orders, which actually requires that as much as possible, there should be the situation where at least more than 50% of members of Parliament should be present before any such debate should come on. And the thinking is that they didn't have that number, which was how come the majority leader was pushing that they shouldn't go ahead with the vote. But I've been speaking to him, Osechi Mensabon, so he thinks that they had the numbers and that they could have gone ahead with the vote, but he just feels that there's the need for some level of consensus building, which was how come he pushed the discussions on the issue to subsequently. But one other issue that became very contentious was whether or not she should have done her national service before she should be given the chance to take up as a public official. Kwekwajiman Menu, who is one of the members of Parliament on the minority side, was insisting that even for members of Parliament, before they are allowed to take up any position or even come to Parliament and win elections and all of that, it doesn't require that you produce your national service certificate. And so that is not a requirement that is really needed. There was also another controversy that came about Article 78 of the Constitution. The minority members, particularly Opare Ansan, who is the Member of Parliament for Suhum, is insisting that the specific requirements for becoming a minister are listed there, and it doesn't include being someone who's done your national service. Those were some of the arguments that came up until eventually the Speaker decided to adjourn the conversation until Tuesday for a decision to be taken on whether or not to get the approval done. Let's speak to a member of the minority side of the House. Thanks very much for joining us here. Akando, Kofi Akando is, Kwabena Minta Akando is actually a member of the minority side of the House. So how come didn't you allow for Otiku Afisa-Jaba to be approved by consensus?
My brother, this issue before us is not a simple matter. It's a test case for Parliament, and it has its own ramifications. Okay? So it's not a simple matter at all. You know, we are the lawmakers of this country, and we expect that the laws we make for the people of Ghana are supposed to respect those laws. And so we are the very people who must protect and respect the laws we make. Okay?
Specifically referring to the need for her to have done national service?
The Act, the National Service Act, the Ghana National Service Act, Act 426. It is a statute by Parliament of Ghana. And it clearly stipulates that if you don't do your national service after the tertiary institution, you cannot be employed by anybody. In fact, the Act even goes further to state that you cannot even be self-employed.
Isn't that far-fetched, which is the argument the majority side are making, that if that's the case, then no one would be working in this country?
Who tells you why? I did my national service. If you mean so well for this country, you must do your national service. You understand? So don't stretch the argument to the point that we are not, most of us here have not done our national service. You are supposed to do your national service. And the laws say so, irrespective of where you schooled. Once you are a Ghanaian, you must do your national service. And you see, the most dangerous aspect of it all is the fact that we are the members of Parliament who made that particular law, and we expect you to respect it. There are two options available for the government. Number one, the caveat is that the government can go back to the National Service Board and waive the national service for her to go through. I admit. But don't lose sight of the precedent you'll be setting. We are sending a signal to the people of this country that national service is not important. After all, if you don't do your national service and you appear before a committee, you will be allowed to go through. While the law even says that you cannot do your own work. Okay? If Nana Akufo-Addo likes, you should go ahead. You should go on that path. That's a very dangerous path.
And which is the second option?
And the second option is that they should withdraw her. National service is only 9 months, at most 1 year. To go and do her national service, and then she comes back for approval. This is simple, two options, simple. And I am very sad about people who are lawyers, lawmakers, and they are defending such a thing. We are lawmakers, we make our own statute. And even the law court, let me tell you this, the law court of competent jurisdiction cannot condone, permit the breach of a statute. How much more we, the House, that enacts the law?
Kwabena Minta Akando there, he's a member of the minority side of the House. Alexander Fenyo-Mackinson is the Member of Parliament for Futu. You rose on the floor of the House and you were insisting that this demand that she should have done her national service before she can take up a public position is not founded in law. What's the argument you are making?
Well, the issue of Madam Otiku-Jaba's national service is not an issue. The report of the Appointments Committee did not state anywhere. You see, when we are dealing with facts, fortunately, my honorable friend has a copy of the Appointment Committee's report. The report is part of the records of the House. It is not an issue. In law, when we say something is an issue, it means that there's controversy surrounding it.
That's what it looks like. There's actually controversy on this. To the extent that the minority leader says she admitted even before the committee.
I drew his attention to the law. And what he quoted was not relevant to the matter before us. This is where we have it. Let him open. He has the report. Nowhere. The contention of the minority has to do with certain words that were used to describe Mr. President. And on the basis of that, if you look at the report, it is there. You see, in Parliament, we don't engage in gallery debates. We deal in issues that come before us. So I am not going to waste my time with the gallery talk. You see, it is one thing acting as an aggressive opposition member, and it's another thing acting as a more constructive opposition member. Make your point, criticize, but ground it on facts and law. Where in the report, ask a specific question. Where in the report, which is between him? He should state where in the report that they are talking about national service as a reason for abstaining from the voting.
So is that the case, that the issue of national service is in
I sincerely believe that he is rather engaging in gallery debate. This is the report, and with your permission, I read responses to questions, national service statutes. Listen to it very well, because if the report comes before the House, we debate what is in the report and pull. You see, he's running away. You see, he's running away. We debate what is in the report and then pull certain relevant documents with regards to the content of the report. And the report says, on whether she has done national service, the nominee responded that she did not do national service because she was not in Ghana at the time. This is what the report is saying.
And so for you,
who's engaging in gallery debate.
And so for you,
this is exactly what is contained in the report.
And so for you, until she does the national service or her,
I'm giving you two options. Number one.
So I mean, so the minority will never support.
No, we will never be part of breaking our own rules, our own laws. We will never be part of setting such a bad precedence for the people of this country. We will never encourage people not to do their national service in this country. It's a very bad precedent. I would never like to be part.
Was that part of the reasons how come majority of you walked out of the House earlier today? Because at a point in time, the minority members, there were less than 10 of you on the floor of the House.
Well, I don't see why my people have, in fact, getting national service in my constituency,
Okay, sincere apologies for that. As you saw there, it seems that our camera is having a little problem with battery there. But that is our parliamentary correspondent, Joseph Opoku Gakpo, engaging some members of parliament, one on the minority side and one on the majority side. Honorable Akando on the minority side and Honorable Afenyo Marking on the majority side. They're basically talking about one of the key issues that have come up that is stalling the approval of Madam Otiku Jaba as Minister for Children, for gender, women, and gender, children, and social protection. We can go back to Parliament now and get involved in that conversation. When we come back, we'll wrap it up here. Okay. Joseph, can you hear me?
Yes, Gifty, I can hear you.
Okay. Briefly, please go ahead.
Yes, Kwame Apiakubi is the member of parliament for Asante Achim North, and so for you, the majority members, how come you didn't use your numbers to really push Otiku Afisa Jaba through earlier today, despite the opposition by the minority?
Right. Let me try and explain the situation, the substantive issue on the floor before I come to your question. The substantive issue was whether or not Honorable Otiku Jaba Afisa performed her national service prior to her graduation from school. That was the exact question that was put to her at the committee level. And indeed, she was very candid to say that she did not do her national service. The Honorable Minority Leader read in the House the provision that required of her to have done her national service before her qualification into public service. Fine. But the same act, the National Service Act, he relied on Section 7 of it. But the same act, Section 8, says that there are exceptions to that rule.
And the indication is that those exceptions haven't been met, so that whether a waiver needs to be gotten from the National Service Board, which is one of the exceptions the minority points to, which they say has not been done.
Very well. There was no question that should have elicited that answer. The person who put the question whether or not she had performed her national service didn't go any further after the answer. So the presumption is that he who put the question was satisfied with the answer so given. And therefore, he did not probe any further to find out whether or not she had obtained any waiver of that condition.
Are you making the point that she may have gotten the waiver, which the House is not aware of?
She may have gotten a waiver, or she may have not.
So you don't know that for a fact.
The position now is that that question did not come for her to answer. And therefore, we cannot punish her for the waiver or not, no waiver, because they did not elicit that answer from her.
So let's round this up.
Granted that there is no such provision of her not having gotten a waiver. And indeed, in the law, you could even defer your performance in the national service. And indeed, it is also the law that you can also do your national service in the House. So granted that she may not even have obtained any waiver or she may not have been participated.
She can go and do her service at the Ministry of Gender, you think?
She can still do it even in the House or at the Ministry of Gender. And she is required to go through a period to satisfy that condition. So granted, without admitting that she may not have done, she still has the opportunity to so do.
So a minister who will then be a national service person, that would be interesting.
It will be interesting, but it will be in conformity with the law.
Finally.
Nevertheless, we did not carry out the vote in the House today. The rules of the House is that under Order 110, we are supposed to vote by secret voting. Granted that under Order 113, we can do a head count vote or we can do a year vote. But the issue on the floor is that we ought to have a certain number of members to be able to take a decision like that. And I want to believe that we didn't have the numbers at that time. That is the only reason probably that we did not vote.
So otherwise, on Tuesday,
we could have voted.
So now that the sitting has been adjourned to Tuesday, on Tuesday the expectation is that the majority will push her through, all other things being equal.
It is not that the majority will push her through. The House will push her through. It is the House who is going to take the vote. And we need the numbers to do the voting. And if we qualify by way of membership of the House to vote on the issue, which is about 50% of us should be present, if we are 50% and present, we will then do the vote, and the House will just do its bidding by way of approving or disapproving. But for now, the House stays adjourned till Tuesday.
Many thanks for speaking to us. Andy Apiakubi is the Member of Parliament for Asante-Achim North, with that justification for how come the House had to adjourn the approval of Otiku Afisa-Jaba until next week, Tuesday. Back to you, Gifty.
So add that the law requires a thorough interpretation of all the provisions to get the import of the law. So you cannot only rely on one provision that says that you have to have this qualification and leave the others who say that you could be exempted. So the law is interpreted as a whole.
Many thanks for speaking to us. Andy Apiakubi there. Gifty, back to you.
Yes, Dapo, before I let you go, I'd like to find out whether or not these persons, these nominees, were in Parliament today. If they were, what was the reaction of Otiku Jaba?
Well, the interesting bit is that none of those who actually, the people whose names are contained in this report, were spotted in Parliament, of course, except Ignatius Bafwewa, the Minister Designate for Employment and Labour Relations. He's someone that I rightly spotted in the House. He's also a member of Parliament, and so he took his seat on the floor of the House earlier today. When his name was being mentioned as one of those who've been approved, he looked very much excited. He was smiling to the cameras, and the cameras in Parliament were focusing on him, even at that point in time when the Speaker was reading out his name. Apart from him, none of the others were in Parliament. But the final bit of it is that apart from Otiku Afisa-Jaba, all the rest of the 5 have been approved by the House, and they are expected to take up their positions any moment from now.
The list of those who've been approved for me, Gapo, before you let go.
Yes, so let me go over the list again. Dr. Anthony Akutose, who is the Minister Designate for Monitoring and Evaluation. Dan Kwekuboche, who is the Minister Designate for Regional Reorganization and Development. John Peter Mewu, the Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources, as well as Ignatius Bafwewa, the Minister Designate for Employment and Labour Relations, and then Samuel Atachian, who is the Minister Designate for Works and Housing. Those are the people who've been approved, 5 of them. It would be recalled that already 13 other persons have been approved for the position, and it's expected that a second report on another batch of 6 nominees who were vetted yesterday and the day before, including Joe Gate, Kwesi Ofori Atta, and 4 others, will be coming to the floor of the House on Tuesday for approval, all other things being equal, depending on the report that will come from the Appointments Committee of Parliament.
Okay. Thank you very much. Joseph Opoku Gakpo, our parliamentary correspondent there, bringing us that brilliant report and that brilliant interviews with members of parliament there. As I indicated earlier, he's been speaking to the minority, speaking to the majority as well. And of course, you heard the minority thinks that this should not happen, especially the issue about her national service should not make it possible for her approval. They also talk about her temperament, like he mentioned, and they refer to some speeches he made, some things that she said during the campaign. Based on that, they think that she should not be approved. The majority on the other side are interpreting the law differently. Well, they say the law has to be interpreted on the whole. You're still here with me, Gifty Andropia. This is The Pulse.